Okay, I think
Survey says.
yeah, I think we're back live here. Sorry about that. Once again, the camera overheated on us, or the phone overheated. So we're going to be in the shade and work from the shade end of the weapon here. Gary was talking about the weapon itself.
When we show the picture of that high drag or retarded bomb, these are the fins that come out, that pop out and literally slow this bomb, almost stops it in mid-flight, which is real important. If this bomb has a fragmentation of a big dome that comes up, and that dome can come up to 1,700 feet above the ground, if I'm dropping a bomb racing in at 200-300 feet above the deck, even lower, obviously I'm inside where that thing could explode and take me out with shrapnel. So these high drag fins popping out put the bomb way behind us as we're scooting across at a high speed, so that we don't catch any of the fragmentation. And that just before it went overheated, we were talking about one of the most critical events for Jim and I as a forward air controller was to make sure that the guys dropping the bombs did not drop what we call a short round, which means the round actually hits the friendlies and not the bad guys. And the advent of precision guided weapons is what makes this thing so much more accurate, so that we're not in any way endangering the friendlies and we're only taking out the bad guy targets.
Well, and we've got this on the A7 that we're talking about, and this is a B model, but the Echoes, the A7Es, were a completely different animal in terms of the electronics they had. They had electronic fusing on the bomb, so this is the next step up from a dumb bomb, or the general purpose bomb, where the fuse was also in the nose and in the tail, so that they had the ability inside the airplane to choose what the weapon would do. You could choose to have the weapon go off above ground level. You could have you could choose to have the bomb delay its detonation for up to a second or a second and a half, which allowed the weapon to penetrate a target and then go off. So there was a lot of things that took place there. And then, as we talked about with Tom the other day, when we started getting into the pave nail system, where we're using laser designators, and then the guidance system on the bombs, and it's still the same general purpose dumb bomb, but putting fins and a guidance system on the front of it, the bomb could glide, and at least you could change somewhat the trajectory of the bomb so that it become closer and closer. As you saw, you had a CEP of the original bombs of dumb bomb of 310 feet. That's not very accurate. I mean, it's a general area weapon. But when you bring the CEP down to now 3.6 feet, now you've got a precision weapon.
And Jim got to do something really interesting that the Air Force guys we never had in the Cold War, was these, shall we say, sniper-guided 2.75s. What did you guys get?
Well, we didn't have those yet, but the guys who took the OB-10s into Iraq a few years ago in 2015, we're using laser-guided 2.75-inch rockets. Same rockets we use all of us use to mark targets, yeah. and sometimes with a high explosive, we were able to use them for general target interdiction. But with the new ones, the laser-guided weapons, they had a CEP at 3 miles of 6 inches.
So you're 3 miles away from the target. You fire this weapon, and it's going to hit the target plus or minus 3 inches. And that's insane accuracy.
And that's where they got to be used, or got the name to be used as a sniper, because this was an opportunity to take a small light airplane, getting close to a target, and be able to, with high precision, take out small targets, whether those were security posts or things like that. So. The weapons have come a long way from these, and the bombs we're looking at here, these and these are real bombs, but they have no explosions in
which
them.
Is a good thing.
Yeah, we get that question all the time, but they still weigh about 500 pounds the way they are. But these aren't a whole lot different than the weapons that were used during the Second World War, and even the First World War in some respects. When you see movies of the B-17s and the B-29s and B-24s dropping bombs, those were area bomb formations. Those were not precision bombing. I mean, they may be precision bombing in that they were going after a building or they were going after submarine pens or things like that. But they were not going in with the idea that they were going to take out a single truck or a single building. It was a bomb that when it came off of the airplane, it was going to be plus or minus 300 feet of wherever you were aiming at that point in time. Wind could affect it. These things are banging around together. They bend their fins, and all kinds of different things can happen to them.
I mean, imagine this bomb. These bombs are shaking because the things got launched off of a carrier, or they're shaking or whatever it is, and you're going in, or you're getting surface-to-air missile shot at you, or explosions from AAA. So these things are shaking up and back and forth, and they come off. So you can imagine every once in a while, some of these rounds, some of these bombs could come off and twist. And now you've got a real problem because these things are hitting each other, if not your airplane, when they come off. So all of this, what we want to stress here is the difficulty at which you have to be able to calculate the angle, the altitude, the range, all this stuff that you've got to be able to figure out in your head real quick to be able to drop the bombs. Thank God the engineers out there have figured out ways to make it simpler for the pilot up front to be able to discharge these weapons in a more accurate mode, because it's a very dangerous business going up and hauling this stuff around. And some of them get hung.
Yep.
What are you going to do with one of these bombs that are hung on your aircraft, and you got to bring it back with a hung round? All this stuff goes into play in just trying to put the bomb on target. That's why we don't refer to these as aircrafts. We refer to them as weapon system. This A7 is a weapon system designed to deliver the weapon accurately.
And then, we talked about Garry had his triangle out the other day, and in a perfect world, you could do a perfect 30-degree dive angle. But what you can't do is be precise that way. All you have to have is just a slight amount of wing tilt as you're coming down the slot, and that's going to deflect the bomb one way or the other.
I mean, just if you're in a little bitty bank like this, guess where the bombs are going to go? They're going to go out that way when I want them to go down this. So you got to have the level bank, all this the right angle. All this stuff determines the guy in front's got, or the gal in front's got to be able to put that aircraft at that spot to be able to put that bomb on its target. Hence, precision guided is so much better.
And these are the kind of weapons that were used traditionally for eliminating structures, or when you had troops in contact in close proximity. One of the things we haven't talked about, the daisy cutter that we showed you where the helicopter had a landing zone, that particular picture was probably not a 500-pound bomb. It could have been, but in all likelihood it was something closer to 5,000, 10,000, maybe in a 15,000-pound bomb, because that helicopter is a CH-53 just like ours, and it's got at least a 60-foot rotor span on it. So that is a big hole that's put in there, and all it's done is knock down all the trees and everything. So those sometimes, the precision of dropping the weapon was these bombs were put in the back of a C-130 with a daisy cutter fuse on, and they were simply pushed out the back of the airplane when somebody said, well, you're close to the target. So it became really more of an area weapon. And in some cases, the maneuver to drop the bombs was referred to as a loft maneuver. Sorry about jittering the picture around here a lot. But a loft maneuver is nothing more than you're taking the airplane and you're swooping up, and you're literally tossing the bomb away in front of you as you do a loop and come back over the top. The weapon is being lofted and thrown out into an area. So there's one of those types of things where you're not going after a specific target with that. You're going after an area. It's either in the middle of a complex of buildings, for instance, or maybe a SAM site with a large bomb, or you simply want to be able to create landing zones for helicopters. But you're also in such a high threat environment that you don't want the airplane to get anywhere near the bomb, so that you want to come in, launch the weapon, and be headed away from the bomb and escaping the area as quickly as possible.
And all these bombs that you see on here, where we've got 6 bombs, if you're in a dive or even if you're in level, remember these bombs, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're going to come off and they're going to fall away at different angles, and they're actually going to gain separation from each other. So you've got to be able to take that into consideration as a forward air controller who's got an A7 who checks in and says, hey, I've got 12 Mark 82s. What do you want me to do with them? High drags. So you've got to take into consideration how long this stick of bombs is going to be based upon his dive angle, or if they're coming in low and right close to the target.
Well, and I can't emphasize enough the importance of the CEP on the weapons, because if we've all seen movies like The Bridges of Tokori and things like that, where the idea was to take out a bridge over a river, or to take out runways. And when you've got this kind of stuff, you don't run in on a target and run in parallel to the runway, for instance, and run right down the runway, because then what you might end up having is a string of bombs along the side of the runway. So what you do is you go cut across the runway and hope that you make multiple passes and you crater the runway or make it unusable. You do the same thing with bridges, and the same things with railroad tracks and that type of thing.
And probably one of the most famous modern day ideas of how you come at the runway at an angle is during the Falkland War, when the British Vulcan bombers dropped basic bombs like this, and here's the runway, and the bombs went 1, 2, 3, 4. The last one hit right there and basically disabled that runway for the Argentine forces to be able to use close-in combat. So they had to take off further away from the target. And all it takes is one on a runway. And that's why you bring them in at an angle, like you said, a 15-degree angle, because you bet then that pretty much 1 to 2 of those bombs are actually going to take that runway out.
And another consideration in all of this too, when you're working a target, is what type of aircraft is delivering the weapon.
Oh gosh, yes.
You know, here we've got an A4 and the A7, and those are probably some of the most accurate. Platforms for being able to deliver weapons like this. If you were on the target and you ended up with a couple of F4s, those were not necessarily the ones that you were going to hope to have to be able to drop the bombs, for a number of different reasons. And this is not an aspersion at all.
No.
But the guys who fly on F4s are fighter pilots. The mentality is a fighter pilot, not an air-to-ground attack pilot. Plus, just the airplane itself. It's not designed as a bomber so much as it is as a fighter. So different characteristics when you're down low and delivering weapons. It makes a difference in what kind of sights you have on the airplane. If it's an iron sight, it doesn't have any kind of lead computing. It doesn't have any kind of wind tracking or any of those kinds of things. Where with the A7, they were designed for that, and especially the Echo models had all kinds of enhancements to the sight pictures and how they could deliver the weapon.
Big question, Jim. As we get ready to end, can I jettison this rack from the jet?
Yes, you can.
Can you imagine going into combat and having your switches set inaccurately, and you go to pick off the bombs and you drop the whole rack? Trust me, it has been done before. So remember, the important takeaway safety lesson from today is know where your switches are.
Yep, switchology. I mean, it's a common thing, but it's a switchology, because if you drop this entire rack,
nothing happens.
Nothing happens when it hits the ground. It creates a hole, but the wires stay on the bombs. The fuses never rotate. The bomb never goes off. And so what you've done is you've just littered the countryside with junk. So
important safety tip.
Important safety tip for sure. And so then there's other issues when you come back with hung ordnance, what you have to do with that, and what you're doing in terms of arming up before you leave. But we're not going to get into all of that. But we wanted to talk a little bit more, extend the conversation from last week about on the bombing range and directing bombers on the range. But we wanted to talk about the weapons themselves, because the actual function of taking an airplane, getting it into an area where, especially if you're in troops in contact, because that's the highest priority that you can get. And then we've talked about circular air of probability with a general purpose bomb, that being 310 feet, we get into what is considered close air support. The Air Force generally considered close air support 1,000 feet.
Yep.
And in the Navy and the Marine Corps, we considered close air support sometimes 100 feet. So you're well within the circular air of probability on a general purpose bomb if you are danger close and they want the bombs right on top of them. So you can't guarantee that you're not going to be spreading bombs in amongst the friendlies or closer than you want. But that's another philosophy. In the Air Forces was 1,000 feet, which gives you a lot of clearance in terms of the CEP, but that's where the guided munitions comes in and makes it a lot safer to be able to deliver ordnance closer to troops in contact or closer to friendlies. So I think we've kind of covered a bunch of stuff here for today, and sorry about the overheating of the phone. We thought we were going to be able to avoid that today. Glad you're here with us. Saturday is going to be a special show. We have a car show out here. We're going to have 230 cars. So what the plan is going to be for Saturday, we know some folks can't come out, or they don't feel comfortable with coming out. So we're going to go ahead and kind of give you a brief tour of the cars on Saturday, as we'll go around and show that. So again, from the Fort Worth Aviation Museum, home of the most touchable warbirds in Texas, this has been Garry Goff and Jim Hodgson. Have a safe day, stay safe, and maybe we'll see you on Saturday.
And remember your switchology.
Yeah, remember your switchology for certain. Thanks, folks.